Hello everyone and welcome to ATL Falcons UK. This week me and Cal have been joined by a ton of guests and we're going to cover a little bit about first impressions of the rookies because of the rookie camp, a little bit about schedule and just see where else it takes us really. So firstly everyone, thanks for coming on. I'm hopeful that you've all seen little bits about Arthur Smith's interviews and stuff like that and how excited, is that the right word, that he's been about it all. So go on, Cal, let you get started with the questions and we'll see where it goes.
Yes, obviously the draft's done. But if anyone wants to start on what they've seen I've not seen a lot of camp stuff. I know they've only shown certain videos or which players you like sort of hyped about, whatever. So anyone can start. Anyone.
No pressure, boys.
All right, I'll start, I guess. What's going on? So from the camp videos, it's really hard to see much of anything, but just I think from what I did see from the back end, it looks like Richie Grant's kind of playing all over the place, which a lot of people expected him to because that's just the way DMPs works. And I'm excited to see him in different safety fronts for us. I didn't get to I feel like they didn't highlight the ugly guys, the guys in the trenches enough. They just put all the pretty things like Darby and Philip Franks and Kyle Pitts out there. So I don't know. It's hard to take from the interviews though. It was exciting to see Ogundije being labeled as an outside linebacker. That's what I thought he'd be.
Yeah.
So he's going to be able to use his length and stuff like that. There was no videos of that, but just the interview in general, I think that's a good spot for him. I think he got washed out as a 5-tech, so to speak. Just taking on double teams, that's kind of not his game. Take on Graham playing like defense end and 3-tech a little bit would be a good spot for him. So really excited about those things. But I think by far we need Richie Grant to be like working out the most of all those picks just because he brings stability to the back end along with Deron Harmon.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think it's in the early stages, it's always the most basic drills and stuff that they do.
Yeah.
It's not there to showcase what people can do. It's just kind of there as a bit of an introduction at the moment. They're not doing the full contact. They're not doing any of those things. So as you were saying, Adam, it's not really the time for those guys in the trenches to be standing out.
Yeah.
But
what's interesting is you have Dahlman and Mayfield both saying they've been playing right across the O-line rather than just as centre or as left tackle, left guard. They're going straight across the O-line, so they're not actually set in one position yet. And the same with Richie Grant as well, when he was saying that he was playing free safety and in the box and what have you. So it's interesting to see that they're not actually fixing them into one position and they're trying them all over the place.
Yeah.
Yeah, the offensive line, they always seem to try and cross-train them, don't they? But normally it'll be a few weeks and then you'll start getting a bit more of an idea because they'll separate into the first team, second team, their team, etc. And we always kind of overanalyze, who's running with the first team at the moment?
Yeah.
Look at that. It's McGono starting at left guard. That must mean that he's in the plans for week 1. But as you're saying there, Rich, like there's so much cross-training and stuff that's going on that they're just trying to get people comfortable with it. So they don't want to, although ideally I think with Mayfield, for example, they do want him to, I think they'd love him to win the left guard job straight from the off. But if he doesn't, and it goes to McGono, or even if they decide they want to give Hennessy another shot there, or whatever it is, I think they want to be able to they want him to have had that experience of, obviously he played right tackle a lot in college. Has he played left tackle? Has he played a bit of centre so that they can kind of they don't have to bring in some guy off the street in November just to give them a little bit of depth there.
Yeah, well, and you even hear like Mayfield had his interview after day 3, and they were talking to him about like how he's played left tackle, right tackle, like he can play guard. He even like made a little joke about playing quarterback or like playing anywhere. So, I think that they're going to give these guys a lot of reps in different places throughout, especially rookie camp. Like get them out there, throw them in different spots, almost intentionally make them a little bit uncomfortable so that, you can kind of build them back up together. So, I mean, one thing that stood out to me that I don't know, the day 2 film was like half Frank Darby highlights.
Yeah.
So I don't know if like Darby is just that guy that's showing out at camp already, or if the media is just kind of playing into the fans' hands. Cause like, obviously he's gotten a ton of buzz as being that electric personality. And they're like, hey, we're going to give the people what they want. They want to see Frank Darby. Here's some Frank Darby. So it was kind of cool to see that. And, hearing Arthur Smith talk about him and the questions that were asked in the Arthur Smith presser too. It'll be interesting to see that develop.
Yeah, it was interesting to see how we put him straight back in the box, wasn't it? Really?
Yeah, that was the question that was it. Tory asked him, and then he was just like, "I don't care about what he says. I just want work. I just want him to prove himself." But it was good. But he's watching his videos. I think when he got drafted, all his videos, it was 7th round pick or late 6th round pick, but it was just a hype. Like it was just a player. I hope he absolutely smashes it, because I think he'll be. If he's mic'd up for a game, oh my god, that is going to be absolutely brutal.
Yeah.
But I think we've got to try and try the players all across the field anyway, because we've got so many gaps in the roster that. And the depth chart that we need jack of all trades players who can cover for others. So I think they're absolutely doing the right thing, rather than just saying, right, well, you were drafted as a left guard, that's where you'll play. You were drafted as a centre. We need them to play everywhere.
Yeah, I agree with that. But in the same breath, I'm kind of worried about the left guard spot, because I feel like if Mayfield or Gono don't really take that over, I feel like it's a huge problem. And in a draft session that you kind of hitch your wagon to these pillar pieces, to not get a guy that's like strictly a guard is kind of frustrating for me from a fan perspective. But I can see the intrigue with Mayfield. It's just, for me, like, there was a ton of guards on the board when we picked Mayfield. So in that sense, it kind of makes it look like he actually went BPA in almost every single round. So if that's the case, then I respect the hell out of Terry for sticking to his guns and really going BPA. And a lot of teams go through that philosophy of just the 5 best linemen will play. So if that's the case, then like, again, kudos to Terry. But I just have questions. That's all.
It seems like a problem, because I'm sure we had this exact conversation at the start of last season. We had no left guard last season, and with the amount of draft picks we had, and like you just said, there were so many on the board, you think it would have been a hole that we would have plugged whilst we had the opportunity to do so.
Yeah.
Because we went into last season thinking, right, we've not got a specific man for the job, but there's a lot of people that might fit the role. Nobody really fit that role perfectly last year. It wasn't horrendous, but it could have been so much better. So it is a little bit frustrating to see.
No one made the role theirs, did they? That's the problem. We know how young this O-line's going to be this year. I think was it last week? I think we mentioned on the show that we want. It'd be good to just have, even if a player's not playing perfect, but to give him a number of games in a row instead of just switch. Like last year was like in and out at times, and I know they are young, but you do want the steady 5, and I know it's not always possible, but the first few games, if they stick with one guy for 4 or 5 games, and then go from there for me.
Yeah.
I'm actually a little bit more excited about left guard. I mean, you think the last couple of years we've had James Carpenter, Jamon Brown, and Matt Gono. I think any one of us guys could probably have a go at left guard and probably win the starting spot over any of those.
So you're saying at least there's capable bodies there now?
Yeah, absolutely.
No, but I think with Andy's point earlier, like, if we're in a situation where Hennessy's starting at left guard and Dahlman's starting at center, like, That's not gonna.
It's not good.
That's not gonna be a good time. Like that's just a whole lot of. I think they're both sub 300 pounders and both kind of struggle in pass protection a little bit. So that could be could be really rough for us.
That's the thing. Everyone keeps focusing on they're moving to more of an outside zone. That's brilliant for the run game. You can see when you watch Dolman and when you watch Hennessy that they're all capable of getting to that second level when they're making their run blocking, taking out linebacker and creating those holes. The difficulty is when they're on the back foot and when they've got a 3-tech coming at them or whatever it is coming at them and trying to push them back. Are they just going to end up in Matt Ryan's lap? And
I mean, if it's Vita Vea, they're probably going.
But that will be, for me at least, that's going to be the most interesting one to watch, is when you've got those two spots next to each other with centre and left guard, which have so much of that is kind of the chemistry and the understanding and how do they work together. A lot of time you'll get the central snap the ball and he'll instantly slide over to his left to try and help, and so that they can double team someone. So you do need those guys to both be on the same level. You can probably afford to carry one guy there who's slightly below average, but it's if you've got both of them there. It's just as good as Jake Matthews is, as good as Chris Lindstrom is. If both the guys inside of them are just getting it absolutely handed to them every snap, it's not a great position to be in. And I think Arthur Smith will plan things up. He'll scheme things up. So he'll get the ball out to Matt Ryan's hands early. He's not going to be doing the dirt cutter where he's just dropping back and standing there and waiting for these routes to develop and just sending everyone on a curl and just hoping that works. There will be more to it than that, but they're getting thrown into the deep end.
Despite all this negativity, over the last 3 years, Matt Ryan's been sacked 40 plus times every single year. Can it actually get worse? Are we being over the top? Can it get worse than that? Because go on.
I'm sure it could always get worse. Will it? Hopefully not. I mean, I think losing Alex Mack was obviously a big piece, and just the question marks around the center position. I personally was super surprised by the Dahlman pick. Not to say that it's necessarily bad. We definitely did need the depth, but I didn't know enough about him really before. And I was actually going to ask a question to Adam too, because Adam, I know you've been big on the film breakdowns, and it's been really cool to follow them.
Thank you.
Have you seen anything? Have you done kind of a film breakdown on Dahlman? And is there anything that excites you? I guess for all of you guys, what do you think the implication is of their faith in Hennessy actually taking over as the center?
Yeah, I mean, for Dahlman, I wasn't a huge Hennessy guy when he came out last year. His anchor is bad. Well, it was okay, but in comparison to Hennessy coming out and Dahlman coming out, I thought Dahlman's anchor was a little bit better. Don't get me wrong, he gets flatlined sometimes, but those are against Washington. When I watched them, Washington's always traditionally have big nose tackles. So those kind of guys are going to flatline him, like the Vita Veas of the world. But the way you can offset that with smaller centers is with bigger guards. So Lindstrom's already 320. If you get Mayfield and he's actually able to work out, or if Gono ends up, even with Gono's inexperience, I think he's only got 3 or 4 games starting as a left guard. Even if he can solidify that spot and give you 2 bigger bodies as guards, it really helps the center position, and it'll help Dahlman. But Dahlman is, for me, he's far superior in the run game to Hennessy when he was coming out. My biggest gripe with the whole, I went on record saying that Dahlman's going to win the job. The one thing I didn't really factor in was that Hennessy's already had a year under an NFL training regimen, right? So he could have put on some weight. I think he was 285 coming out, and that's just way too small. Even for an outside zone blocking scheme, I understand you have to get to the second level and make those reach blocks and create running lanes, but he's just too small. And a lot of times, even sub 250 linebackers were kind of beating him to the ball, and that's just not ideal. But Dahlman does a really good job inserting himself physically against those kind of linebackers. And if you look at his body type, he kind of looks like a linebacker. He's a big like jacked up dude. So I think he was 295 coming out, but I'm encouraged by Dahlman. I think it's going to be a real legit battle. And the biggest thing we all have to understand is that this regime owes nothing to the last guys that were drafted last year or the previous year. So the biggest thing and the best thing for this team is that there's going to be legit camp battles, and guys are going to have to earn their spot. And that's one thing I've been preaching all off season is just accountability with guys that either have gotten passed just because of draft capital. But just to answer your question in the whole, I like Dahlman coming out more. But Hennessy having that year under his belt already, it could really help him and pay dividends into him solidifying that spot.
Yeah, I didn't think Hennessy did that bad at centre, to be honest. In the last couple of games that he played, Alex Mack towards the end of last year, he wasn't playing great anyway. Mm-hmm. And I think he played at, in his first season, he played at a standard of what a very experienced Pro Bowl centre on his down year play. So you've got that sort of level. And I think Hennessy, with training and camp, I think he can improve. But like you say, the interest is going to be to see who wins out of the two of them. Plus, of course, there's plenty of centres in free agency as well. Yeah. If they're not happy with, they can go out and pick. I mean, we were linked for a long time, weren't we, with the
David
Andrews.
Well.
David Andrews, but Austin, what's his name? Austin
Writer.
Writer, that's the one.
Writer. Okay.
Yeah. I mean, he's still free at the moment. There's another name that's been bandied around as well. So, but I think Hennessy's got a bit of a poor reputation on, not being Alex Mack.
I think because he struggled so much at left guard when he came in, that kind of soured him in the minds of all the fans, didn't it? And he was better. He was better at centre. You could tell that he is a natural centre. I think it's just as Adam said, that it is going to be a genuine competition. If anything, it looks better for the front office and for the coaching staff if their new guy comes in and wins it straight out, isn't it?
I think you could also, sorry, Andy, I think you could also see that, let's say Arthur Smith, Terry Fonto, they don't care, like you say, they don't care about the previous years. They've already come in, they've watched the film, and they're already releasing players that they don't think are going to make the grade for the Falcons moving forward. E.T. Swift obviously being the main one.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Well, and they even said, like, throughout a lot of these pressers too in recent weeks, like, competition seems to be a recurring theme. They're talking about with everyone, every position, every skill set. Like, it doesn't matter who you are. Like, even the running back room, they bring in Mike Davis, but everyone's going to get a chance to compete. So, I think that you have to have that mindset when you're coming in. You have a new team. Like, you got to give these guys a shot that are here. But just because you're a vet doesn't mean that your job is safe. And I think that that's one thing that Arthur Smith is going to do a really good job of, is keeping everyone uncomfortable and keeping that competition and energy there, so that you truly, the best, 11 or 22, however many guys, are going to play every single week. And that's what I'm really excited to see, is where things kind of shape up over the course of these training camps.
And I think from a fan perspective, that's kind of what you want, is you just want these battles. Like week one, we kind of, for the most part, we knew who was playing where last year, right? Like, well, we didn't have a preseason, but for the most part, starting spots were kind of solidified early. So to see things go down to like the third preseason game, like, for me, that's really exciting, because that means we're watching these preseason games and they're meaningful snaps for everybody. So for me, like, I know a lot of people don't like preseason, but I'm a film junkie, so I study the shit out of that stuff. So, it's really exciting from a fan just to see, like, I think everybody's going to be, like, even Matt Ryan, Julio Jones, you're going to see these young kids coming in competing. I think it's going to be contagious for them and kind of give them more of like a will to battle a little bit harder,
Well, Quinn preached it as well, didn't he? He always said, "Oh, it's best man wins. It's all about the competition. But realistically, in however many years he was there wasn't that many surprises.
Yeah, exactly.
Brian Poole as a rookie was probably one of the only guys who like kind of came in from nowhere and won a starting spot that a month or two beforehand we weren't saying, yeah, he's gonna be there. I can't think of too many other examples of guys who surprised us and won a spot based on strong pre-seasons.
Yeah. Exactly.
Well, and I even think you saw like kind of the opposite. Like you had guys that showed really good flashes that weren't necessarily getting like someone like Sanat, who had some good flashes, had some good upside, but wasn't necessarily getting a lot of reps and things. And, you know, you don't always know what's going on behind the scenes, but for the most part, everything was kind of status quo. It didn't seem like things were getting shaken up too much. And it was more of like surprises in terms of player performance, not surprises in terms of personnel and who was getting the opportunities.
I think the one thing I do like is the quote that straight away the rookie camp is high intensity. I think it was pretty much walkthroughs with Dan Quinn. You know, from the first training session, it's walkthroughs. It's just this is what you're going to be doing. But with Arthur Smith, it's right. There you go. This is what you've got to do. Sorry, my son's just decided to pay a visit.
That's awesome.
He knows more than I do, to be fair.
I think going back to pre-season, like me and Danny, obviously we're only like 3 years in. So the first year we was just like, we enjoyed watching any games, even if it is pre-season. But I think this year, it's obviously last year there wasn't one, but this year with the amount of rookies we have in, and the amount of rookies we've brought in through the squad and undrafted players, I think this year is massive for them fringe players to get into that roster. Like last year you could probably name more or less everyone who's going to get in it, but I think this year it's going to be a tight squeeze for some people who there's going to be quite a few players you wouldn't know much about, etc. And I think that's them 3 games will be quite an exciting time for them.
Well, it's the opportunity to embed the new process as well, because nobody's going to be up to date with it. It doesn't matter if you're Matt Ryan or if you're Derby, nobody knows what's going on. So I think even though the majority of the snaps will go to the rookies and the people on the outskirts, I'd imagine a lot of people will get at least a few in there just so they're like feeling game fresh, as opposed to last season when we staggered so much because we didn't have that. And that's what pre-season's for. People can slate it all they want, but we were not game ready at the start of last season at all.
No,
yeah.
Absolutely. And I think we're not getting purely due to the cap situation at the moment, we won't get the usual. There was a period of time, a few years in a row, where we had like a really reactionary free agent signing or trade or something like that based off just getting absolutely destroyed by the Dolphins. And and it just seemed to be a habit where every time we play them in week 2 or 3 of preseason. I think it was week 3 of preseason. They just destroy us, and it was when we'd have the starters out, and it would mean I think Levitra was probably traded for off the back of it, and just all of these things just happening based on Derek Shelby or whoever it is just beating them.
I find it quite odd this year. I don't being no friendlies or pre-season last year. Like we're playing the Dolphins in our schedule as well. So imagine that game will be where we wouldn't show much off at all. They'd probably just completely fringe players. Because I'm not saying they'll take much from it, but it's one of them games where you rarely play someone you're going to play in your 17 games as well.
Well, if Dirk Cotter played a team in the pre-season, then the whole playbook would have been revealed in one game. So we would have had no chance, would we, really?
Yeah, that's what they normally do. It's usually like they'll put out the starters for a little while, but it'll be the most basic vanilla play call. They won't be showing anything really. They'll just be sending guys in straight lines down the field. And,
They'll just be Derby dancing around the field.
Yeah, exactly.
Hey, I'm fine.
But just say, Danny, you're just so bitter about Dirk Cutter.
I am. I can't get.
He's been gone for months, and now you're still going on.
I can't get.
Just leave it. Just leave it.
the pain that we went through, though. So that's why I'm ready for the new start. That's why I'm ready for it.
Yeah,
Rich has been supporting him 30 years. Look, imagine the pain he's gone through.
Yeah, all right. Thanks for reminding me.
You said you was watching a documentary earlier.
They weren't even on TV. Rich used to have to just look it up in the newspaper the day after.
I used to wait for the carrier pigeon.
Love it. We've got some in the comments, just a little bit about Hawkins. Your guess is as good as mine of what impact he's going to have so far.
I think he has quite a decent, just a decent chance of getting in because of the amount of running backs we actually have. I think if he impresses in, like, up to the rookie camp and all the way through, I think he has a very good shot.
Well, and I think so. Hawkins was actually a guy that I did a bunch of mock drafts, and I drafted him in one of the later rounds in one of the mock drafts because he was a guy that, like, I love his home run speed and how he is kind of a different back than Davis. And unfortunately, like with, of course, CP is going to be on the roster as a back. We've got Davis, so you've already got two, and I think that with the type of back he is, I almost think he has a better shot. I like Allison, but I almost think that since Allison is a bigger back, right kind of near the end zone, and that I think Hawkins almost has a better shot at getting playing time is like that change of pace back, that home run versus speed. So I am super excited about him. I was high on him. I was really glad we got him as a UDFA because I think he'll be good. But, obviously it's way too early to tell and know for sure. But I'm excited to kind of see what happens throughout camp with him.
And Arthur Smith obviously doesn't let much show, but he's already talked up his speed. He's already talked up being able to find gaps. I'll be very surprised if he's not one of the 53.
I think the difficult thing with Hawkins, if you watch him, they played Miami, and he looked as if he should be an early round pick. He was bouncing off players. No one could tackle him. And then you look in the other games, and the lack of size becomes just a little bit more apparent because he was 5'8", 180 or something like that. He's a small guy, and you don't get that many running backs of that size. Normally, if you get a decent amount who are 5'8", they're normally quite a bit bigger, quite a bit thicker. So, and you look at the guys who have succeeded who are really undersized, guys like Tariq Cohen, like Aaron Sproles, they're a lot better on third down. Like they're it's not that Hawkins is bad, but he wasn't doing it as much as those guys were. Immediately coming out of the draft, those guys, you knew that they were the receiving threat. You knew that they could stand in there and they could do a bit of blocking. Hawkins was he was used a lot more on early downs than those guys were from what I remember. So I agree. I think he does stand a good chance of making the 53 just because he offers that difference, as you guys were saying, with the change of pace and with the home run speed that he has. It's just how they will get him out there. Like, are they thinking they'll flex him out or put him in the slot and try and get him the ball on screens like they used to do with Taylor Gabriel and Anton Smith and people like that? Because I just don't see him as this kind of between the tackle runner just because he is so small. But the talent's definitely there. It's just things that he can't control.
But you say that, but he's the same height as Devonta Freeman, same weight as Devonta Freeman. And
Freeman was a lot, wasn't he?
No, it's 5'8".
Yeah.
Weight-wise?
180.
Is he really?
Yeah.
I thought Freeman was like... I'd have said Freeman had 20 pounds on him.
Everyone's on the phone within 30 seconds.
Free deadlift.
Yeah, you did. My maths was wrong. 200.
Yeah, 206. He does have 20 pounds on.
Yeah. I've said it before as well, though. I mean, Hawkins looks like a 12-year-old when he's on the pitch. I mean, some of the film I've seen, he just looks so small. It's untrue.
But he can run.
But he can run. Oh, my Christ, he's got some pace. all he needs to do is find a gap, and I think that's where it's going to come in handy. With all he's got to do is find a gap, and he's gone.
Yeah, that's the creative play calling we're talking about, isn't it? Don't have Dirk, and he's just saying, right, okay, what we're going to do is we're going to go power straight down the middle on first.
Straight down the middle. Yeah.
You're like, no, we can't do that.
One person that I'd like to get everyone's opinions on, I know we don't really think I've seen anything in the rookie camp of him so far, would be Felipe Franks, just out of curiosity, because I see him making the roster just because of how thin it is. And I know you only usually take 2 quarterbacks, but I'd rather have someone like him that's got something in the tank than another, not a nobody, that's a bit cruel, but another person that's just steady and just all right at everything. I'd rather have a bit of a live wire. I don't know what everyone else thinks.
Yeah, I mean, I was heartbroken when Kurt Bankert got released.
Yeah.
I'm super excited for him to be picked up and signed with Green Bay. So, still a fan of his, but Franks was an interesting prospect for me. I live here in Florida, so I have tons of UF fans and people. So I thought Franks was awful when he was at Florida. So was never really a big fan of him, was always a big critic of him. And, now through kind of seeing him in this last season, as well as just in terms of like a long-term development prospect, I think he could be good. I think he would really have to tank and underperform, like overwhelmingly underperform in camp to not make the roster at 53, just based off of like, they know that he's a raw prospect. He's got the size, he's got the arm, he has those intangibles, was one of the words that Charles London used, or even TJ Yates, that he is a good developmental prospect, but he, obviously isn't there yet. So I don't think they expect him to be there. He's going to be a third string for a couple of years. So we'll see. I'm hopeful. I'm an eternal optimist with this team. So I hope that, with Charles London and with TJ and with, what our coaches can do to really develop him. But I just don't know. I don't know what our other options were, I guess, right now. But
where's your faith, boys? Where's your faith?
Yeah, I don't think he's anywhere near polished enough to be the backup. I think AJ McCarron's got that job locked up, to be honest,
sure.
because if everything is going badly and something does happen, at least with McCarron in, you can get him in and he can complete those 6-yard passes and just kind of do the game managing and keeping everything going. I think with Franks, there are definitely things to like. Like, you look at him moving, you look at him running. He's a big physical guy. He's like 6'7" or something like that. He's huge.
Yeah.
And he can move. I get why people would, especially after you've seen people like Josh Allen recently, you go, oh, well, maybe he could be the next guy. But I do think you need to completely rebuild him as a passer, basically. If you actually watch, like the number of times he's throwing off just one foot, he's just like jumping in the air while throwing for no apparent reason and things like that. I think there's just so much that needs to be doing for him that maybe in 2-3 years you look at it and go, okay, yeah, that's fine. We can see something for him. But I think ideally you want to see if you can sneak him onto the practice squad and see what happens there.
I don't know much about him at all, other than what I've read after he was picked up. I think he's going to be a camp body, practice squad at best. I think they're going to. It was either QB or bust this year, so they went for the bust option. And they'll have him as a camp body for 2 years, practice squad, and then when it gets to the time Matt Ryan calls it a day, then they're just going to go into the draft and go there, even if it includes trading up to get the top ranks. I think I can't see anything past that.
Well, that's fair enough. I just thought I'd throw it out there. I mean, there's nothing wrong with AJ at all. He's just another Matt Ryan, just like a lot of tiers down, and I just like a bit of a spark in there. So I appreciate he's probably not going to be second choice.
There could be some fun moments in pre-season, Danny, which I think is really compatible sometimes.
Yeah.
Yeah, he'll probably start all 3 games for me. don't see why you wouldn't start him in any of them. So I think it'd be quite exciting to just see what he does against them, and why not? If he's the only thing I can say is learning from one of the best in his. So I think that's one thing in his favour, and the most humble guy you can get, Matt Ryan. So see where it goes and see what happens.
I will say we went from one of the most electric QB rooms between Ryan, Matt Schaub, and Kurt Benker, and I know all the guys at the Falcoholic calling Matt Schaub the GOAT, and are even more upset about losing him to a big question mark in that room. So I do think that it is nice, and I'm sure TJ Yates coming over from Houston helped a ton in influencing that decision to bring McCarron over as well, because there's that familiarity. They've already worked together. They kind of know what you're getting with him. But yeah, I mean, I'm definitely interested to see Franks. I'm sure I don't think he'll necessarily start all 3 preseason games. You got to get McCarron adjusted to playing with an entirely new team, and you also you're going to get Matt Ryan a few reps just to kind of knock some of the rust off. But he'll definitely get his fair share of shots for sure.
Yeah,
I'm actually surprised they didn't keep Matt Schaub on as a consultant in some way, because he's obviously highly respected behind the scenes. I know it was obviously with the previous regime, but Matt Ryan obviously works very, very well with him, and I think he could help any developmental QBs that come in alongside TJ Yates.
Yeah, without a doubt. Just moving on a little bit away from the players, I don't know if anybody's had the opportunity to watch any of Arthur Smith or Dean Pease press conferences so far. I don't know if there's anything that was said in any of them that stands out to you that you'd like to bring up a little bit. I mean, we've said it off camera. Arthur Smith still is completely head on the field, doesn't want to be in front of the camera, tells you what you need to be told, and then that's it. But I mean, there's still little bits in there.
I still love watching his interviews, though.
Yeah.
I just love the attitude on him, and even though he says things so blunt, I still get, every time I watch stuff like that, I'm still excited for the future. I'm just like, want it to be fucking quick, but it is exciting. all the interviews, even though he's so blunt, but
it's the kind of Belichickian approach, isn't it, Cal? It's the Bill Belichick approach of just students of the game. It's all about what happened. He's got no interest in waxing lyrical about how somebody's playing. He just wants to say, did that person do their job? Yeah, fine. We're on to tomorrow.
And I think
you say that, though. Go.
I think this was going to be one of the main things with Dan Quinn after we got battered but like when we lost like the first game, the second and third game last year, or even the year before, it's like he made excuses up all the time. And I know they'll always make slightly excuses up because they're not going to slag the own team off completely. But I feel like Smith would be like a bit more brutal and a bit more honest, basically. And I think that's what the team we need. Like when it came to that, obviously the Cowboys game last year. If that was like Smith this year, I think would have literally just came out on a plate and said it. Dan Quinn was sort of backed off from the media a lot in the last couple of years, I would say.
Yeah.
I was going to say, since he's been appointed, I've been watching a lot of YouTube clips with Arthur Smith, not podcasts, but when he's been on Good Morning Football America, wherever you go over there. And he comes across as quite a warm, quite open, and quite what's the word? He doesn't come across as dour as what he does on the press conferences that he's doing now. I think at the moment he's still trying to size it up. He's getting questions that he's not used to, but I think he's going to come out of his shell out over time.
Yeah, and I just think that, and Cal, you mentioned it, the accountability side of things is something that he brings to the table that is, I think really the theme around where he's centering this team is everyone's going to be held accountable. I think, and even from we were talking about before we got started, the Bussin' with the Boys podcast that he's been on a couple of times, it seems like he is, to an extent, a player's coach. Like he develops great relationships But more than anything, it's not that they just love him because like he's one of the boys, but he develops that level of respect. You know, he really is a technician in how he runs his practices. And I know like Kelsey Conway brought it up in one of her, like the first post-game pressers, about how he's, you know, walking around and just seems very laser focused on everything going on. And so I think that he takes that same kind of approach into his press conferences where he's just laser focused on what's going on. He's a football guy. He's a football junkie, and he's just kind of there. He's not there for all the fluff and the headlines. He's there to accomplish a job. And I think that's why, you know, Arthur Blank brought him in and why he's going to end up being a great coach for this team. But you can see too, like when that Darby question came up and how Torrey was asking him about, you know, Darby and setting the tone and all of that, you could see him like fighting back laughter. He was kind of like clenching his teeth a little bit because he wanted to laugh, but he was just very like kind of stuck to his guns and was pretty matter of fact about it, which I thought was cool.
Yeah, you've got to think with Arthur Smith, he could have the easiest life he wants to, couldn't he? There was a couple of months ago where his dad founded FedEx or something crazy like that. He is here because he wants to be here. Like he wants to be a football coach, and like you've just got to look at the Titans offense before he took over and when he was there. A lot of people will say, oh, he just had Derrick Henry and he just kept running Derrick Henry. You look at Derrick Henry stats before Arthur Smith got involved and started calling the plays, and after Arthur Smith started calling the plays. And there is a big difference. Obviously, players develop. Obviously, players get better. But there's a reason that he was probably the most desired guy on the coaching staff. Everyone requested to interview him, and there's a reason for that.
Well, Ryan Tannehill was a 6-year bust, wasn't he, in Miami? You know, and straight away he's
borderline top 10.
Absolutely, yeah. And you look at the coaches that Smith's worked under in Malarkey, Vrabel, Matt LaFleur. He's going to take everything from all of those, and they've all kept him on as well and promoted him. You know, so I can't wait to see it, and it's going to be really. I'm buzzing.
Yeah, that's one thing.
I think Gates might say the same thing. One of the points where he's been at the Titans for so long, but he's done like so many positions. Like, let's be honest, the Falcons got rid of like everyone this year. That's what happens when you make a big change. They kept him, and they brought him up, and they brought him up through the ranks. And I think that was
three different coaching regimes. The fact that he was retained through 3 separate like coaching changes is crazy,
insane,
and I think is a testament to the kind of coach and person he is too.
Yeah, it just shows the reputation he has, not just at the Titans, but wherever he's been and wherever he's going to go, in around NFL as well.
Yeah. No, I haven't. Have you guys seen? Because I didn't see anything on. Like, I was looking at the Falcons app and like I was just scroll through the videos, but I didn't see much from Dean Pease. When was
I saw this on Twitter earlier, but it wasn't through the Falcons. I don't know who it was through that shared it. I mean, for all I know, it could have been from a year ago. I don't know, but they made it seem like it was recent. So we can circle back to that. We'll find it at some point. But just because I'm a little bit conscious of time and stuff, we were going to dip a little bit into the schedule before we go. I'm not talking a game-by-game run-through, but is there any games that are standing out to anyone in terms of where they fall in the season? Other than the last game.
There's one highlight.
I think the Jets is quite exciting. Yeah, I don't know why.
I'm so jealous of you guys. So my brother's getting married in September in Italy. So I'm going to be in Europe already for like 2 weeks, but it's like my trip ends, I think like 10 days before that game. So I was like, yeah, like I was hoping to stay over, but I'm probably not going to. But I'm lucky because I live in South Florida, so I get to go to the Miami game, and I'll probably go to the preseason game too. So I at least get my fair share.
I mean, you do that, and you can always get your family to change the wedding a little bit. Just 2 weeks later, you know. See that easy.
Yeah, I'm sure his fiance would love me asking that.
I think, do we have the third easiest schedule. I know that it only means so much to me. I think I don't take loads from it because teams improve every year. They're always going to improve. That's the point of pre-season, etc. But I think that Eagles game straight away is because we were both two poor teams last year, so that's going to be a big. Obviously, I know every game is big, but I think it's going to be an exciting game. I think it will be a close game to start with, but where we can sort of put our mark straight away.
Yeah, well, and I think there was a video that came out earlier about like kind of a schedule analysis. And if you look at the first 5 games before the bye, they're all, Tampa's obviously going to be a tough one in Tampa, but Philly, Giants, Washington, Jets are all very winnable games that you can come out and build confidence, set the tone early, and almost give your team a chance to develop into that new regime and that new strategy without playing someone like the Chiefs or later in the season we've got a little bit of those harder games. So I mean, I'm excited about the first few weeks because I think it'll really help to give us an idea of where we're going to be. But I think they're a super important 5 weeks because if we aren't very good early, you go into a bye week super early in the season, and then you're just you're running for the next 12 straight. And I think it'll be hard to pivot, but
I think this is where we'll see where the proper fans are again. I know because you can't. People like you do. Look, it pisses me off. Like we don't expect the playoffs, but everyone knows there's a chance. There's a chance. Anything he does. I think we have a good chance compared to say when Smith did take over. I think everyone was like happy with 8 wins or whatever. But I think the first 5 weeks is going to be important. But I don't want if we went 2-2 or whatever, I just want the fans to constantly back them. And I know some people will be like, "Oh, Smith wasn't the right guy," etc. It's just just back the team. With 4 games in, anything can happen. If we go on a streak of 3 wins, we're 5-2. So
the game I think I'm looking forward to most is in November when we go up against the Patriots. I really want to see Arthur Smith against Belichick, and it's sort of pupil and teacher kind of scenario. I know in the way that Belichick's been around for donkey's years, he knows what he's doing, he knows what he's talking about. I keep calling him Mike Smith. Arthur Smith, new kid on the block, highly rated. So I think that's going to really set the tone. And if we could get the win there and make him look like a dick, then I'm going to be delighted. Sorry, Andy, what you said?
No, I'm saying that's litmus test, isn't it? That's when
I think so. Yeah.
Where are you just a team who can beat up on some bad teams? Is scoring 30 points against the Jags, that's impressive? No. But if you can start putting up those 30 points against the Patriots, even if they're not necessarily the Patriots defense as well, as you say, Belichick will have them ready for it. No matter who leaves, no matter who comes in, he always has them ready to play. So I completely agree.
And you look at the free agency that he's brought in this year as well. I mean, they've gone to town in free agency. So they're not going to be the team they were last year. And I think if we can put on a showing against them, I think that will really show where we can go.
Yeah.
Well, and I think the biggest thing too, looking at not just even those tougher games, but the close games, the ones that are decided within 3 to 7 points. Last year we were abysmal. We lost almost every single one of those games when it was decided by a touchdown or less. And if and that really would have been the difference between our season last year. It's if we won, 4 or 5 more of those, it's a completely different year. Whereas, if Arthur Smith has better game management, is able to help kind of keep that momentum up for us to pull those across the line, I think that's going to be a huge sign. No matter how the record ends up at the end of the year, of course, I personally think there's 10 wins. We could at least get 10 to 11 wins, but at the same time, no matter how the record shakes out, if we win more of those than we lose, I think that'll be, at least a step in the right direction.
You do know you're a Falcons fan, don't you?
Yeah, I also was super optimistic last year, and that didn't get me very far. So, I was like, "Oh, Super Bowl year for sure," and yeah, how that turned out.
One of the big
we
problems.
actually did a prediction video, and one of your video was in that as well, mate. And a lot of them were, and everyone. I think the lowest that there was 10-6. I think was the actual lowest score that anyone went for. And
I think we had like 20. I think 20 odd people did it, and we'll probably do it this year. But obviously,
we will
probably be the same. It'd be the same, like 10-7 or whatever. We'll go from there. But you're not just gonna go in and be like, 5-12. Like I think the lowest people would usually go is, I'd say, 8 wins this year. Which
our problem was the optimism coming off the previous season. That's what our problem was. But Gates, you didn't do the obvious thing and realise we had Dan Quinn as head coach at the beginning of last season. So being too optimistic, you didn't look at the bigger picture.
I think that's the big thing, because even if you ignore Dan Quinn as the head coach, which I still think there were, like, the way that he carried himself, he completely reinvented the organization. To his energy, I'll always be a Dan Quinn fan. His issue was there was just no preparation whatsoever that went into it. It was, we'll run out the same cover 3 scheme every week. Teams knew exactly what it was that we were going to do. And then even when Raheem Morris came in, took over, it got better. But I mean, last season, the one that always sticks out to me is we were literally given the golden opportunity to beat the Saints. Taysom Hill starter quarterback. You know what Taysom Hill is. He hadn't thrown a touchdown since college. And even in college, he wasn't a very good quarterback. There's a reason that he was brought in as this kind of jack of all trades. And Sean Payton's a genius. I'm not going to sit here and pretend he's not. He knows exactly what he's doing. But you knew with Taysom Hill, he's going to want to keep the game going with his legs, and he's going to want to go for those easy throws. You could see pretty early on that he wasn't quite on the same page as Kamara. So it's then Mike Thomas. What can we do to him? We all have a laugh about Mike Thomas and the fact that he didn't get a catch against the Bucks in the playoffs and the Browns in the playoffs and all of these kind of things. But you know what he can do. He can beat up on smaller cornerbacks, especially when he's playing in the slot, and he has very good hands. So you double team him, put 2 guys on him, and they weren't doing that. They were just leaving him in single coverage, and Taysom Hill was just making those easy throws straight away. He was getting 8, 10, 12, 15 yards every time he caught the ball, and then was just going down and getting tackled. But it didn't matter because he had enough to get the first down and keep things moving. And there was no adapting to it whatsoever. And I think that's the big thing that Dean Pease should bring.
Yeah, I agree.
Well, everyone, it's been said that he loves a blitz, doesn't he, Dean Pease? So you can see that's just going to be coming from everywhere. When you got Dion Jones blitzing anyway, I mean, he's hopefully. I'd say also, I'm going to say, is they've done a bit of a cunning plan here. They've let Taysom Hill look like a genius against us. They kept him on, and we're going to beat him up next year.
Bold, but I'll take it. Bold.
I'll take that. We can end on a good note.
Unfortunately we're pushed for time a little bit, so we'll have to wrap it up, but we will get you all back on when there's a little bit more news. I know this has been a bit of a botch show, really, because nothing's really happened. But thanks for all coming on. Thank you for everyone watching live and all of your comments and stuff. There's been a ton tonight.
Just before you go, Danny, sorry to interrupt, guys. The last comment about Dante Fowler, I'm hoping Dean Pease can bring something out of him this year. He's not a terrible player. No. He had his injuries last year, and I'm just hoping that, he will turn it around. He can't get any worse, can he?
If someone can turn him around, it's going to be Dean Pease. You can't ask for a better guy to do it. So,
I think one of the coolest things with Dante is he's always, I think he really fits the mold of that accountability. Like last year, he talked about what he wanted to do. And I think he realized that he underperformed. He didn't live up to the expectations, and he took a pay cut. And he has that prove it mindset that I think does bode well into this new regime. And I think that, I'm hopeful that he'll be able to turn it around, that he's going to put the work in and, use some creative blitzing, things like that to, give him more opportunities.
Yeah. I think there's only going to be 20 players in the roster that are going to be sitting comfortably. Let's put it that way.
Yeah.
I think all the rest of them know that they're going to have to work to keep their place in the team, and I think obviously Dante Fowler knows that, and he's gonna run with it.
Yeah, no, I'd agree. Even better, more positivity to end on. We're actually talking nice about a player that last year got slandered like pretty heavily at some point. So I'll take that. But yeah, lads, thank you all for coming on. We'll do it again in the next month or so when there's more to talk about. And we're going to do a proper game by game review show and everything like we always do. So I'll let you all do your research beforehand when we're a little bit closer to the season. Right, we'll call it a night, and thank you everyone for watching. See you later.
Cheers, guys. Bye bye.